I hate when that happens. I thought I hit live. I did not hit live. So, anyhow, hey, good morning. 7:01, 25 degrees here in Whites Creek. November 21st, day before Thanksgiving. How's your gratitude? How's your gratitude scale? Is it high? Are you thankful? Are you appreciative? All that kind of stuff. Okay, so as I was walking out the door this morning, Sire Apollo, that's the daddy golden doodle of the house, again got between me and the door and did a little dance, jumped up, put his paws on my shoulders. He was begging for me to take him to the office this morning. And it occurred to me that I've taken Apollo to the office. Well, I took him yesterday. And I took him one day last week and one day the week before. And so suddenly now, what I've done with Apollo is set this precedent that he can go to the office. So now he wants it all the time. See, I gave him an inch, I gave him a day. And then he wanted 2 days, then he wanted 4 days. Now he just wants to go every day. And he wins a lot of the times because he's just so damn cute. And he's so persuasive. Well, so then my twisted little mind, I've been working on a kind of a tricky real estate issue right now. And it's tricky because at first I was going to say that this was human nature. But if it were human nature, it wouldn't apply to Apollo. So maybe it's just survival of the fittest or something. But this little idea of give an inch, they take a mile, it goes a long way. You know, we've all got to have our standards. And I've got a lot of different analogies, but one of them, one of my most clear and present ones was one that I learned from watching my daughter Allison play lacrosse. And lacrosse is an extremely confusing game to watch because the rules seem to change from game to game. Like, you can see them doing all kinds of stuff in a game this week, and last week they weren't allowed to do that. And so finally I found somebody, my friend Jim Tarwater, who's a big lacrosse fan, and he's so involved at St. Cecilia. I don't think he watches these, but anyhow. So I went to Jim and I said, Jim, I just don't understand. I mean, I don't see any consistency here. I don't see standards. I mean, where are the boundaries? And Jim said, well, you know, in lacrosse, pretty much everything is up to the refs. And the best lacrosse players know that the very first thing they've got to do when they come into a game is learn what the ref's tolerance is. And so the players will play beyond the boundaries. I mean, they'll do just ridiculous stuff. And they will keep doing it until they find the ref's boundaries. And then they'll stay within those boundaries. And so what that means is every single lacrosse game has a different flavor. Because every single lacrosse game has, a certain mix of players who are willing to test those boundaries, at the risk of getting red carded and thrown off the field. And that every single ref will tolerate a little bit less or a little bit more than the others. Well, lo and behold, that same principle applies to everything we do. I see that in real estate transactions. if you're too early to give up too much, the other side just keeps wanting more. And that's just the nature of the beast. That's, again, survival of the fittest. And then when you say no, they're like, well, what do you mean no? You let me do it earlier in the game, so why now are you suddenly not letting me do that? You know, simple little things like enforcing the terms of the contract. And you say, oh, well, yeah, you've got timelines, but we'll let you slide on that timeline. Well, next thing you know, you're asking, you know, you get a little further down the line and inspection issues come up. All right, so then the seller's got to fix all this inspection stuff. Well, then they're not getting it fixed on time. And of course, you've already given them an inch, so they're going to ask for more. And they're going to say, oh, well, you know, you should just give us extra time. And then that turns into a delay of a closing because repairs aren't done. Or they've gone lackadaisical on everybody and the loan's not ready because they just didn't get it ready. And so essentially the bottom line of that is that buyer or that client wasn't playing by the rules. And everyone in the game allowed them to do that. And so whose fault is that? Interesting thoughts. Now, in the scenario that I'm playing with, this dynamic played out all the way through the transaction. The transaction actually ended up closing, and then next thing you know, it actually, this tomfoolery survived the transaction. So the client who was misbehaving is still misbehaving, even after the closing, withholding the keys to the house, left stuff in the house, wants to come back later to get it just because everyone was loose. So, you know, there comes a time when you got to hammer down on that. You've got to firm up on the standards and not compromise them. And I think the best and only place to establish that is at the very beginning, just like the players on the lacrosse field. You've got to be that person who stands strong at the beginning and says, you know what, we have a standard and we need to stick to that standard. We don't want to deviate from that standard. There's a reason for it. And if we allow you to deviate from it, you're going to want more. And you're going to say, oh, no, I'm not. And I'm going to say, well, yeah, yes, you are. That's human nature. That's actually beastly nature. If you get an inch, you're going to want more. So keep that in mind and use it for what it's worth. By the way, if you do that, you've got an extremely competitive advantage. And the reason for that is that the people that really want that mile, who you give an inch to, the people who most want that, if they're shut down early, then they got no other cards to play. Because suddenly they find out, they say, oh shit, now I've got to do this thing exactly to standard. And the problem is they don't know how to do that. And they can't change their personality. And then they've got themselves in a pickle. So, all right, so I'm going to flip it 100% from there to this idea of what's going on tomorrow. Gratitude. I have heard the word gratitude every day in different contexts this week and last week. It's just been amazing. I've seen so many people with so much humble gratitude for other people, for things that are going on. It's at Pareto Realty, I've seen so many instances of people doing fantastic things for other people, and then genuine gratitude coming straight back. Another example, I think, might be a little bit of a stretch, but another example of setting the bar early. And so, you know, it truly is true. It really is true that the more gratitude you have for other people, the more comes back to you. And there we go right back to that fundamental 2 words: be nice. All right, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving, and I hope if you're not in a spirit of gratitude right now, that maybe you'll find it sometime today. Maybe instead of working, if you're going to work, maybe you go in and you avoid stuff that takes you away from that. So just focus, beginning on now, if you're watching, whenever you're watching this, focus on finding gratitude in virtually everything in your world. And just do that today. See how it feels. And maybe, if you're one of those people that when you're given an inch, you go a mile, maybe you'll do the same thing with this concept of seeking gratitude. And I guarantee you, your life will improve precipitously. You see how well I said that word? Usually I stumble on that one. All right. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a great Wednesday, and I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. And all that. And as always, I like to end with, hey, connect with me sometime if we hadn't talked in a while. Take care. Bye.